to The Best There Ever Was, the pro wrestling podcast where we discuss the art form that is pro wrestling and the emotional connection that keeps us coming back. As always, I'm Chris.
I'm Fax.
We are the Curtain Jerks, and this is week 2 of our sort of...
Our thing.
Our shooting the shit about New Japan. Our attempt to take the fact that we watch way too much New Japan and text about it and try to do something useful with it so that you too can get some value out of this.
Yeah, I think our wives prefer us just talking on the internet live once a week for 30 to 60 minutes rather than every single night for 30 to 60 to 120 to 180 minutes. So this is saving marriages.
Exactly. Well, and the problem is really it's not the existence of the conversation. It's really the volume of the conversation.
Yes, that's
I get. It's like I can hear you 2 floors up from me. Why are you talking so loudly about New Japan, Chris?
Yeah, the fervor of it all.
I have a to say about Doki. These are meaningful to me. All right, so obviously, if you didn't join us last week, this is the second time we're doing this. This is we're going to talk about the week that was in New Japan, which was a week filled with more Best of Super Junior and World Tag League. And we are going to do a watch-along of a classic match tonight. We are going to do something from the Best of Super Juniors in the past, 2014.
Yeah.
We're going to do Kenny Omega against Ryusuke Taguchi.
Yeah, we did a Kenny Omega World Tag League last time. We'll do a Kenny Omega Super Junior. This time it's covering both of the current tournaments in New Japan, as well as Kenny Omega, because I hear he has a big match coming up. We only watch Japanese wrestling, but my people inform me in the States, Kenny Omega is going to be in something of a big match. People
have told me winter is coming. That's what they're saying.
I've seen Game of Thrones, so
yeah,
I get the reference. So what's been going on in World Tag League this week? What's been your big takeaways? What did we learn this week that we didn't know last week?
Well, a couple things. I think first of all, they seem really interested in the idea of Techers playing babyface against the more heel teams, right? They did babyface runs against God, against Cobb and O'Karn, against Yujiro and Evil, none of which were Claw.
Good White Claw, yeah, Gold Claw. Mine's on ice.
None of which were classic matches. I think, those teams just not great. I mean, and I think that's really hurt. I don't think this has been a strong week in World Tag League. I'll put it that way. I don't think there's been a lot of great matches that you have to go out of your way to say. I can pick probably 3 of them that I would recommend to someone, and 1 or 2 of them aren't even that strong a recommendation.
Yeah, I would say the last one in particular on the 30th of November was probably the best of the bunch. I think that the one thing
easily
it was easily honestly for me, it might not have had the single best match. I think it might have been the single best one of World Tag League so far, just period. Definitely the most balanced. That there were 3 different matches that were pretty good to better. Yeah, but this has definitely been for the Techers. I think the reason that this has been a less exciting week is because they haven't had very good matches.
No.
In week 1, it was like, even if the rest is shit, the Techers match will save the night. And they've had those matches on paper. You're going into it, you're like, I don't know how good this is going to be. They haven't been in the main events per se. I don't know if they've been in any main events, but they definitely haven't.
A couple of them were, but yeah.
Okay. But yeah, you're right that with the them working face thing, it happened once. And I'm like, well, that's just veterans, right? Kind of going with what the crowd gives them. But you're right. It just keeps happening now. So something's happening. So either this is a very planned thing with New Japan, and that was one of the plots they wanted to introduce intentionally to this tournament. And whether it's to actually turn them babyface or to just turn them that further heel, but probably turn them babyface. Maybe or not. Suzuki Gun's so weird in a good way.
Yeah.
Or just the fans are kind of just going with it. And it's just like, maybe Guido didn't expect this, but he's certainly seeing it.
Well, I think part of it is that, the way they've positioned some of the other heel factions is further to the heel side than Suzuki-gun, right? Obviously, Bullet Club is, the strongest faction.
Black Hat. They're the ones
blackest of hats, yeah.
Right.
And then I think the Empire, they are trying to push again in that heel spot. I think they've been really bad, unfortunately. I mean, I thought Cobb and Okarn against the Tekkers really made me give up on the possibility of Cobb and Okarn having a decent match in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, Okarn, I guess he's gotten better, but he was so bad that even if he's better, he's still like heads and tails the worst guy on the roster in the ring. Like he makes, Yujiro look like, Okada.
Right.
I mean, it's bad.
Which we saw Yujiro and Okada matches all summer. The gap between those two is pretty big.
Right. Right. And that's saying something,
Yeah. And I think they're also playing on something. I think one of the interesting things with World Tag League right now, a lot of teams are in contention right now. Really,
almost everybody.
Almost everyone other than Hanare and Tanahashi and Chase and Fale. Maybe even I think who was it? Yujiro and Evil are a couple points back of the pack. But otherwise, there's 7 teams at either 8 or 10 points. Such that I kind of think they may be going for a multi-team final. They might be trying to push a few teams together, have a 4-way for the final, to try to cover the fact that none of the matchups they could put together for a final are like big numbers, but maybe 4 of them together. That's a bit more exciting.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because then they still have to have the Wrestle Kingdom match, right? So it's like, do you not put the Tekkers in that 4-way match, or do you do something weird where there is no? They have to have a final. They could not have a final, and then I don't know. It's kind of interesting because I know you and I have talked about if they do just do a traditional finish, that there's a normal one team versus another team final. And then the winner of that goes to Wrestle Kingdom to go against the Tekkers, assuming it's not the Tekkers who... It's clearly the Tekkers aren't going to win at all because they've already said they're going to take Wrestle Kingdom off if they win the tournament.
That's not happening, guys.
Which is great, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that we both think that one of the favorites, and probably the other team that has a big story this week, has been FinJuice.
Right.
And
FinJuice kind of coming from behind, started out pretty slow. And not only are they winning this week, but they're having, I think they had probably the best week in terms of matches. I thought really, really good match against LIJ, Shingo, and Sonata a few nights ago. That was really good. And then a really great match with the Tekkers in the main evented for Korakuen a couple nights ago. I thought that was one of the better matches of the tournament, I think, because really nice work, really nice heel-face dynamic, just a strong match all the way through. I think FinJuice is really coming on.
Yeah, and I think they're coming on and they're playing this just traditional kind of babyface formula, right? Where they have, the Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, or Ricky Morton and like Road Warrior Animal type thing that they got going on with Finn and Juice, and they're doing it really well. And they are kind of the only team, I guess. Them and the Chaos teams are the only ones that are they're babyface. They are unambiguously babyface. And it's kind of interesting because you have this whole thing now where I do kind of wonder, and I know that the Tokyo Dome's not going to be sold out, but there's still going to be a lot of people at the Tokyo Dome. And I do wonder if it ends up being FinJuice and Tekkers, especially after Tekkers is getting all this kind of face love. I do wonder how the crowd's going to react. Are they both going to get face reactions? Do they make kind of the Tekkers the heel? I assume Tekkers are going to work heel regardless.
Right.
But I am more interested in seeing that match at Wrestle Kingdom than I thought I would have been before this tournament started. So I guess that's a success.
Well, I think, Juice is one of the great guys, I think, in working in this pandemic style right now, because he's all about getting people to clap. It's kind of all they can do, but he's very good at getting that going and getting the energy level high for a match. So I think he's been a surprisingly sort of nice guy to have back. Not that I was dislike Juice or anything, but I think he's someone who, and I think a nice, valuable player over the last couple of tours.
And like Kenny Omega before him, he's learning more and more Japanese. I don't know if you've been watching the post-match. But he's saying quite a bit of Japanese. He's not nowhere near Kenny Omega fluency, but he is saying lots of different phrases in Japanese, and they seem to be digging it.
Yeah. I think the other real great match this week, and I know one that you were quite high on, was Hanare and Tanahashi against Ishii and Yano, which I agreed. I thought was really, really terrific. I thought there was a lot of nice interplay. Tanahashi interacting with sort of Yano's silliness was very fun.
Right.
And obviously the Hanare and Ishii interaction was a lot of fun.
I told you, like, I kind of want to see Ishii Hanare in like a featured singles bout at a big card or a Korakuen main event type thing. I want to see that. Like, it's just they kind of were just hitting into each other a lot early. That was kind of the end of the match, was them hitting into a lot again. That was, I think, the overarching narrative was these two guys. And Hanare, the two things that I think he is a pretty gifted wrestler. I think that he's certainly better than Okan or Yujiro. His facials could use a lot of work, and his selling sometimes could use work. But you and I were texting about this. Put him with someone like Ishii, put him with someone like Suzuki, who's just going to beat the living shit out of him for 15, 20 minutes. That he doesn't need to sell. He'll learn, and you see that in this.
You can't not sell forearm to the face.
Well, and then you also stop acting, right? And you just start. You're not selling. You're just reacting. And I think that he looked much better late in that match after Ishii had been really laying it into him for a while. And by the way, he'd been giving pretty good. The offense is not the issue with him. His offense looks quite spectacular in a good way. He looked like he belonged in a ring with Ishii when he's on offense. And then by the end, when he's tired and he's beaten down, Ishii's beating the shit out of him. His selling is really good, and his facials aren't over exaggerated. And I feel like if they give him some time with some of these veterans, throw him with Goto too, throw him with a lot of these guys, Shingo. I think that he could really become something.
Well, I think, if I'm recalling right, I think next show they have Shingo and Sonata. I think that's the main event, actually. Hanare and Tanahashi against Sonata, which will be an interesting one. But yeah, I think if we're picking a couple this week, if you're looking to catch up on World Tag League, Hanare and Tanahashi against Ishii and Yano, and then Finjuice against either Techers or LIJ. Maybe watch both, but pick one if so. Otherwise, pretty easy to skip World Tag League this week, the other stuff. How have you been feeling Best of Super Junior? Because I think this has been another sort of, I think a couple of guys are the real highlights of the last week or so.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing where I think anybody tuning in live, what they want to know is what do we think about this week in Doki, right?
Yes. Where is the Doki-sans going?
And I would say if I was a 11 out of 10 on Doki last week, I'm still at a 10 out of 10. Maybe I'm not all the way to the 11, but Doki has continued having some of the matches, and this isn't a joke anymore. This isn't a fluke. I mean, unless he's on some kind of crazy performance-enhancing drugs that are going to shorten his lifetime, and he just wants to have this one month stretch. He's continued to have good matches. He didn't go against Hiromu this week, and he's still having good matches, and some of the best in the tournament. And then I think other than that, I mean,
I think that's the thing about Doki. His performance over the last week is that he's had matches against guys who I'm not as excited to see him work, right. and they've still been good, right? I mean, he had what I thought was a solid match with Watto, which is kind of impressive because Watto really had a lot of the stretch, and a really nice solid match with Desperado. Again, neither of them I'd say you have to go out of your way to see, but keeping me feeling comfortable that this thing is real and he's performing really well. Whatever energy he drew from working with Yoshihashi at Korakuen a few weeks ago, that did it. I don't know. Now he's Best of Super Junior Yoshihashi. It's just kind of working.
Yeah, and by the way, I've been enjoying Yoshihashi with Goto too. By the way, I would say they're another team that they've had solid workmen. They might have not had the best match of the night too often, if ever, but they've been solid workmen. I'm looking forward to the rest of them. But yeah, I mean, Doki. I think that you and I talked about going into this. The guys that we were interested in. Not to say that we thought we were going to be amazing, but we were interested on paper. Was Doki. It was Robbie Eagles, and it was Watto, right? Because these are the guys, and showed a smaller degree, right? Because these are the guys we haven't seen have these same matches with these same guys a million times. I could literally close my eyes and have no problem matching what Bushi versus Taguchi is like. Yeah. I've seen that match 700 times. Bushi versus Desperado. I've seen that match many, many times. It's a good match, solid match, 3 stars to the T, but it's not. It doesn't make me that excited, and I think that Doki has been the one that's really been the blowaway one, that he's having these matches. They feel very fresh because we haven't seen him before. He's been really good. Watto hasn't been as good, but I will say this. Watto had a much better week 2 than his week 1. I would still not go out of my way to watch any of his matches, but he is not. I don't think he's on the Great O'Karn scale, right? I think that I see some potential there.
They can put him together with Yo when he comes back. Yo needs something to do. I feel like he and Watt would be a nice solid funky 3.5K.
Well, and then maybe have Rocky Romero turn on them, join Doki, and then that's an instant feud right there.
Instant feud.
Yeah.
I think the other guy who would have really weak, mainly because of the quality of his opponents, was Robbie Eagle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Robbie's
great matches.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the one against Ishimori is probably my match of the week. I would say my single match of the week.
Agreed.
Him against Hiromu, which was a main event, was really good. If somebody wanted to pick that as their match of the week, I certainly wouldn't argue too hard with them. But yeah, I think Robbie Eagles is showing you again. He's another guy that we haven't seen him have 20-minute long singles matches with these guys that are at the top of the division, and he looks like he belongs, and that's a good sign because I know I had high hopes for Robbie Eagles. Again, Doki, we didn't expect this from at all. Robbie Eagles was a guy, I think we saw enough of him with the Birds of Prey in particular that we thought he might have this in him. We didn't know it, but we saw enough that we were cautiously optimistic. And I would say he's not at least at that Hiromu level. Nobody is, but he's a guy that now you can see. You put him with decent people, he'll have a really solid match. You put him with great people, he's capable of having a pretty great match.
Yeah, and I think the guy coming up that I think is exciting is that as Eagles, the same guy as Eagles got last week, Show this week has his match with Hiromu, and he's got a match with Ishimori on the final night. And I'm very, very excited for those. We've seen Show get to work a lot of the guys who are at the lower level. So not too exciting to see him work a match with Desperado. It's super exciting to see him have a main event match with Hiromu, a main event match with Ishimori. I think those are really, those are something I'm looking forward to a lot.
Well, yeah, and I'll even say though his matches with like a Desperado type are also a little bit of a different context, right? That we know that he's Janetti'd the fuck out of Yo. Like he's become the Shawn Michaels of Roppongi 3K. And so now we know he's a singles guy, right? We know this. We entered the Super J. There was no chance, he's going to flame out in the Super J. And as soon as Yo comes back, they're going to be jerking the curtain in tag matches. That's not happening.
No.
So Show is a singles star. I mean, he's won the openweight title already. I mean, he's clearly a future head of this division. He's going to be, if not an ace of this division.
For it. He hasn't won it yet, but I think he might.
Oh, you're right. He beat Shingo in a singles match. Yes, he did not beat him.
But still,
you're right.
He got to get put over Shingo already. So I mean, that's
clean, right? Yeah, in a big match with a lot of eyeballs on it. Yeah, I mean, he's clearly a guy that's earned that. And I mean, he's
busted our friend Angel's New Japan Cup bracket.
He did.
Totally busted, yeah.
Badly. He had Shingo winning it or in the final?
Going very far, yeah. He lost a lot.
Yeah, he was a bracket buster. But you and I both picked him to win, actually. We saw this coming.
Yeah, well, and that's why, and look, we're nice guys. We didn't break his knees. We broke one of them. Just, it's...
I mean, we broke one of them and then he paid.
Exactly.
So it was all fine. We didn't have to find out how nice the guys we are.
Exactly.
Yeah, but again, overall, it's definitely like, listen, if you're watching this in the future and you're just like, hey, what match should I be watching overall? I would say the middle week of Super Juniors. It's really good matches. There's nothing that essential, right? I would say, and generally at any New Japan tournament, this is kind of true. The first few nights are the most important, and then obviously the last 2 nights are the most important, and that's where you're going to get the best matches. And I think that's what's arguably the most exciting right now, Chris, is that we're at the tail end of this, right? We are coming into those nights where we are going to get some really great matches coming up. And did I look at the 1972 site correctly that they're doing the final, not the finals, well, the finals too, but the last night is also all together, right? They're doing tag league.
One big night, one big long evening, which I think is going to be really, really interesting. Probably a few dead matches at the top, but after that, there's going to be a lot. And I think it's particularly Tag League, of those matches are two teams with a chance to make it to the final or be involved. I think it does feel like that's what they're setting up. Super Juniors feels like it's definitely coming down to Wato and Hiromu and Sho and Ishimori. Those feel like de facto semifinals, most likely. But I'm very excited for those matches. And yeah, it feels
and hopefully by the way, those two matches get 20, 25 minutes. That's the one concern, right? Particularly in the COVID era, is that's a lot of matches, and you want some of these matches to get some time. Are we going to get 4 or 5 matches that are each going to go 20 minutes? I don't know.
Well, I don't think they're going to feel too worried about shortchanging Yujiro and Evil against Fale and Chase. I think maybe they'll give them that 5 minutes and they'll be okay with that. Save some time for later.
And which Gorilla of Destiny do you think is going to be putting over Hanare on the last night?
Tongaloa.
Okay.
Tongaloa. That's my pick. Younger brother. Older brother always gets to avoid the job. If he has.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
But yeah, no, I think it's going to be interesting. I'm excited for the stretch run. And then I'm pretty excited to see where they end up going with the rest of that finals card, because they've got a lot to still do for Wrestle Kingdom.
Oh yeah.
Another thing that's coming up this week that we should note, I think it's the next to last night, the first preview match, LIJ against Ibushi and a team. So Ibushi and Naito hopping back on the tour. I don't like Ibushi's chances when he's teamed with Honma and Kojima.
Sure. But again, just to have him and again, we were watching that World Tag League match last week, watching just Okada and Kenny touch hands in any capacity, really exciting. We're gonna see that in a couple of days here. It was great looking at, because I know you look at the card way ahead of time. I typically only look a few days ahead or maybe the week ahead. And once I saw the Naito and Ibushi, I didn't even see the rest of the guys in that 6-man tag. My eyes just lit up, and I'm like, oh crap, I had forgotten that these last couple of days we get some of the upper card guys back too. And let's see if Jay White makes an appearance. Well,
the problem is I look at them way ahead and then I just forget, and so I have to look at them 2 days in advance anyway.
Yeah,
I just forget them.
And and to be fair, I look when the stuff first comes out, but I kind of immediately in one out the other. But yeah, so again, I would say another good week, and I would say two things that I told you I wanted to share, that I am really jazzed and energized by these both happening at once, and I wish they would do this more, this kind of thing, because I have no energy for World Tag League, and I love Super Juniors, but even Super Juniors, it can, even the G1 to some extent, can feel a little draggy at times. Whereas it feels so much fresher just going bang, 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 bang. And I'll tell you this, though. Here's my – and I didn't actually tell you what this was ahead of time. I just said that I had one.
Mm-hmm.
I would pitch that to permanently flip, if they're going to keep it one tournament at a time, permanently flip where Super Juniors is and where World Tag League is. And I'll tell you why. Because I think Super Juniors – feels like that is really the G1 for juniors. It really does mean something.
Right.
And it really does mean that you are not only challenging for the title, but you're in a certain echelon of guy, right? That not every junior is ever going to get to. That even if you don't win that title, you're in that rarefied air. And the same way the G1 winner feels like that. And that way, I feel like going from Super Junior into Wrestle Kingdom feels better to me. Whereas with Dominion, it's obviously a major card. It just feels like the junior match at Wrestle Kingdom has never felt nearly as big as it's going to feel this year to me. And I feel like, especially if they're going to keep doing these two-nighters, you could really, like, Ishimori, Hiromu, or throw Sho in there. Any combination of those three guys could potentially main event a night of Wrestle Kingdom, or be second to last. It's really up there. And then I would argue the exact opposite for the tag titles, where it kind of feels like it is just this vehicle to have a tag title match at Wrestle Kingdom. You end up throwing all these guys together. It often, the winner is just two guys we just kind of stick together that have nothing else to do at Wrestle Kingdom. Finjuice was an example last year. Just kind of, and I know that they had some history before then, but it was kind of just two guys that stick them together. I mean, you look at who was a Hanma and
Makabe. Well, they had a lot of history. They had a lot
of history, but they won back-to-back World Tag Leagues. Gorillas of Destiny have never won one. The Young Bucks never won one.
Yeah.
Right?
Bucks never were in one.
Well, that's true. I mean, they were only heavyweights for, what, a year?
Less than a year, yeah.
Yeah, but still, it just feels like, to me, they could use this to make a team. You have Finjuice win it in the middle of the year. They win the tag title at Dominion. You've got a whole half year to really build Finjuice. And I think if you look at like the Techers right now, whether it's pandemic addled or not, the Techers were just two guys that were in a stable together. And now they feel like dominant. They feel like I can't even imagine these guys not as a tag team. They are carrying the division. And I feel like that's because they've been working. Whereas I think if you put World Tag League, you put these teams together and you keep them together through Wrestle Kingdom, if not further, I feel like that's how you build a better tag division. Whereas New Japan has great tag matches, but they rarely have a good tag division.
Right. Well, and I think part of it is that I think the Wrestle Kingdom positioning is part of the problem with World Tag League in that when you have a big main eventer type, a guy like Ibushi, he's not going to go into World Tag League because he's got his match set up for Wrestle Kingdom. And the easy answer would simply be, well, if you move it to a different part of the year, then you can put him and Tanahashi in there. You can put Okada and someone from Chaos in there without giving away that, without the idea that, well, they can't win the tournament because Okada has to defend the title at Wrestle Kingdom. So I think that would be something that they could strengthen at that point. I think, and to me, I think maybe you don't do this back to back with, or in the same tour as Best of Super Juniors. Maybe you do it with the same tour as Junior Tag League, which I always felt has kind of gotten short shrift, is kind of fun. But you do maybe 2 World Tag League shows, 1, Junior Tag League show for each of them, and just kind of, keep going through it. And that's an opportunity to have a stronger tour as opposed to the weird. They've done kind of a weird thing where they've kind of blown out Super Junior Tag League up until this year, obviously, where they just did the short thing to make new champions. And it's just not working to me. Like, that ends up being a weird tour. But I feel like if you kind of mash it with the World Tag League, you could probably get a slightly more cohesive experience.
I agree.
Yeah.
And keep it the one big block, too. Because that's the other thing is that maybe not as much with the juniors, but certainly with the heavyweights, that some of these teams are changing all the time, right? We talked about, Tanahashi's always with Hanare. This is what, the 3rd time? It's not like they've been together. They haven't been together that much. These teams are changing all the time. And you even have a guy like Ishii or Goto, they're in it every year, but they're switching off different partners every couple of years. So I feel like have everybody go against everybody. And that's another thing with the tag division. You're kind of like rebooting the tag division at the middle of the year, and then through a conclusion, a good story arc that takes you to a logical conclusion at Wrestle Kingdom. Yeah. Even if that conclusion is a 4 corners tag match or something like that.
Yeah, and again, maybe 2 guys coming together, that's a thing that can drive through the rest of the year, like Page and Omega, like Tanahashi and Ibushi. Speaking of Kenny Omega, let's take a look at our watch along. I'll put the link here into the comments, and you can pull this up and watch along with us. Pull up that link. And if you're watching in the future, you can just pause us here and find that link. But for now, we're just going to go. We're going to go to it. Are you ready, Fax?
Give me just one shake. I am ready. If you want to start counting down.
All right. 3, 2, 1, play.
Right. Yes, I do have my volume off. As I would say, I might lose you for a second here. And as always, folks, I'm looking to my other screen here. Nothing personal. So we were talking earlier. Omega and Taguchi, for those that maybe are more modern fans, and maybe you joined with the Chris Jericho Kenny Omega match or the Omega Okada match, you don't really know much about Kenny's junior history. So I think this is going to be a treat. But Taguchi and Kenny Omega have a lot of history. So Apollo 55, which was Taguchi and Finn Balor, or Prince Devitt were Apollo 55, and they had a very long feud with Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, the Golden Lovers. And then after that, Kenny and Taguchi have had many singles matches against each other. They end up after this wrestling at a Wrestle Kingdom. About a year and a half later?
Half a year later. It's Wrestle Kingdom 8. Actually, that's actually the first Wrestle Kingdom I watched. It was the first Wrestle Kingdom with contemporary English commentary. One of the ones main evented by Tanahashi and Okada. Interestingly, though, so that's a big moment. Kenny, at that point, has just joined the Bullet Club, wins the junior title, and goes on, roughly speaking, a year run with it. He drops the belt in the midway and gets it back, but basically it's a year run as the top junior. But at the same time, Ibushi is wrestling Nakamura in an absolute stunning classic. I mean, if you haven't seen Ibushi and Nakamura from Wrestle Kingdom 8, go out of your way to just go check that out.
Yeah, and then it's interesting because you're bringing up that this is kind of a very interesting era of Kenny and the Golden Lovers, right? So this is kind of post Golden Lovers, right? He's kind of just a generic babyface. He has not joined the Bullet Club yet. He's still a junior, and Ibushi has gone on to heavyweights, right? He's gone heavyweight. He's kind of left Kenny. Kenny's talked about this, that he was the one that got Jannetty. Kenny Omega was the one that got Jannetty to Kota Ibushi's Shawn Michaels. But obviously, he finds something in the juniors, and as you mentioned, that if you go to the 1, 2, 3, that 2-year period with the 3 WrestleManias, Wrestle Kingdoms, he literally goes to beating Taguchi for the junior title, basically a year-long run, loses the junior title. The next day, not only becomes leader of the Bullet Club, turns heavyweight. Immediately, it says he's challenging for the IC title, and by 1 year later, he's the first foreigner to ever have won the G1. He's in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom, and he had the greatest match of all time. And if you really look at it, that what we're looking at here is just about 2.5 years before he's main eventing Wrestle Kingdom, and is the match that brought a lot of people back. I have a feeling that match and the Jericho match the following year are going to be the things that we have people talk about, where we talked about on our pipe bomb, our podcast a lot, about the pipe bomb, as that being a thing that brought a lot of people back. I think that either bringing people back or bringing new people into it, I think those Kenny Omega matches against Okada and that Kenny Omega match against Jericho, I think that's going to be the next generation of 5 years from now. That's going to be the thing that everyone that's watching wrestling, that's the thing that hooked me. That's the thing that brought me back.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's basically the impetus of AEW, is the match with Jericho, which was only made possible by the match with Okada being such a big deal that Jericho feels like it's worth his time to go to Japan and work this Kenny Omega guy.
Right.
It's interesting to me at this point in Omega, because if you watch stuff, I mean, his New Japan runs go back to 2010, as I think is the earliest. And at the beginning, he looks young. You're like, oh, this is young Kenny Omega. And it's kind of interesting to see him in the juniors, not yet a Bullet Club guy, but look like himself, kind of like modern Kenny Omega, just a little bit less muscle mass than current Kenny Omega.
Well, yeah, and I have to say, because I told you about it, how I did just recently watch that, the AJ Styles, him taking out AJ Styles at New Year's Dash, and then he does challenge for the Intercontinental title about 5 or 6 weeks later. And literally in that about 6-week period, he goes from the Kenny Omega we see on the screen now to basically the Kenny Omega that's on AEW every week right now. That he just puts on about 25 pounds of muscle. And it's really amazing. But you're right, like just facially, the hair, kind of the tights are the only thing that really look off here. Him wearing kind of these more generic babyface kind of tights, quite frankly.
Right. When it's Taguchi, so Taguchi's kind of an interesting character in the history of New Japan and where he is current day, because it is jarring kind of the first time, again, as someone who really started watching in like 2015 or so, the first time you go back and see young Taguchi with Balor, and you're like, oh, this is a different Taguchi. And Taguchi at this point, 2014, has obviously split from Balor, Devitt, and he's now in the green trunks. He's Funky Weapon Taguchi. He's sort of early Funky Weapon Taguchi here.
But he's not really a full-blown like comedy guy, right? He's not the guy whose ass we've seen 17 times in this year's Super Juniors. And again, he's a guy that would, a couple months later, like on the other side of that transaction, he would be the junior champ that Omega's challenging for in a major match at Wrestle Kingdom.
Right.
So I mean, again, it shows you that that's not really the Taguchi we see anymore as like this serious championship contender. And obviously, he was the champion there. And if he wasn't as highly regarded by the Japanese fans, maybe Kenny Omega doesn't happen, right? Kenny Omega gets a lot of credibility. He beats Taguchi not only at that Wrestle Kingdom match, but the first big event, A New Beginning after that, they main event one of the nights of that in a rematch, this time with Omega as the champion. And Taguchi had a big role in getting Bullet Club Kenny over. Obviously, I think Kenny's in-ring work helped a lot. And certainly this era of Omega, in the rare chance he gets to say something on the microphone, which would be something like this, where if he's able to win a main event at a Super Junior, that's about the only time Kenny Omega's getting the stick in 2013, 2014. But he would bust out that he speaks Japanese even back then.
Yeah, it is interesting. You can hear, I love the counter there from Kenny. That's kind of an interesting, a counter you don't usually see for a senton. But it's also, you can hear that there's a nice sort of like buzz in the crowd already. Again, even before these guys had really big matches together, there's a real buzz to the crowd for this one. Maybe an indication of where Kenny was going to make it to down the line.
Yeah, totally. And this could be something like, by the way, when we see like Ishimori against Sho, that could be this, right? I mean, it's not crazy to look at Taguchi at this era as a guy like we look at Ishimori today, a guy that's established himself at the top of that division in both tags and singles, and Sho and Kenny Omega. I mean, obviously calling anyone the next Kenny Omega is huge, but like it's not a ridiculous statement with how far we think Sho can go in this biz and how much the fans seem to love him.
Yeah, well, Ishimori is an interesting guy. I mean, he's been around. I think it's easy to forget like how long he's been around because so little of his career was in New Japan. But one of our deep dives during quarantine was kind of getting into some like mid-aughts Noah. Mm-hmm. And Ishimori is young there, but already basically in the beginning of his prime.
Yeah, I mean, and he, by the way, was in a lot of Best of Super Juniors back then because back before New Japan New Japan's really beefed up their roster quite a bit in the modern era. They used to bring in guys from other promotions to every single one of these, Best of Super Juniors and a lot of the big tournaments. And you saw Ishimori was a staple of these things.
Well, Kenny too. I mean, Kenny at this point is still a DDT guy.
Yes. Yeah.
Just coming in for Super Juniors. Now you see less of that. Now you see less bringing in guys from other Japanese promotions, more bringing in U.S. guys. Kind of interesting. I mean, I think one of the really interesting things, you see it with the lineup for the Super J Cup this year. I'd be really excited for next year's Best of Super Juniors if they're going to bring in a lot more American indie talent. I'm excited for Leo Rush versus Hiromu. I'm in for that.
Yeah, totally. And again, in that beautiful thing we still hope for, if there's somehow they can be a relationship with AEW, getting Sammy Guevara, getting Phoenix and Pentagon over there, and maybe Pentagon's not a junior, and honestly, maybe Phoenix isn't either, but hot damn, in any context.
Well, and it's interesting. I don't want to date this too much, but again, we're right before the Super J Cup. They've got a lot. They've got guys coming in from Impact, from AAA, from ROH, from MLW. If there's not a relationship coming down the pike with AEW, it would be also fun to see New Japan be kind of a uniter of location where a lot of people from the U.S. companies can come together and kind of form maybe a third super promotion of sorts. There's an interesting path there. Obviously, I'd love to see them work with AEW just because of the matchups that are on the table there at the top level of it. But I wouldn't be against them just trying to expand and work with a lot of the American sort of promotions as well.
Which is why every year, and now it seems like Super J Cup might be an annual thing now, even though it never was. Maybe it's a special quarantine thing. I don't know, but every time there is a Super J, and particularly if it's going to be in the United States or anywhere near the United States, I always go to Vegas. I put a dark horse bet, even though not technically announced, for Shane O'Mac to win it all. I think one of these years, Shane O'Mac's going to show up and he's going to win Super J Cup.
I mean, my understanding is that he's the best in the world. So
he's the best in the world. He can jump coast to coast. I mean, that's what a Super Junior's made of.
Ooh, a kick from Kenny there.
Yeah, I mean, this has been like a really fast-paced, hard-hitting match. I mean, this is just and Taguchi is really selling it well. Like he's kind of like, and again, I don't know the exact story leading into this match in this tournament off the top of my head, but it seems like, from his face, we're almost seeing like, oh man, I didn't expect this Omega kid to kind of give me this much. And what's going on? And obviously he's not that Omega kid. Again, they wrestled a lot of tag matches together, but Taguchi's really, really putting Kenny over with his expressions and his selling. And again, just Taguchi just having this just very traditional junior heavyweight big main event match. Like you just don't see out of him anymore.
Yeah, it is really. I mean, again, look, 5 years can do a lot. 6 years can do a lot. Not 6 years now.
He looks exactly the same though.
He looks. I think that's part of the weird thing is that he's really barely aged. But clearly, physically, he's the style takes a toll, and he's relying on his comedy a little bit, which is fine. It's different. And the explosiveness of that like missile drop kick, just not something you see from current Taguchi.
No. And again, current Taguchi isn't really a threat to win the current tournaments, right? He's there to work with the younger talent, kind of fill out the bracket with somebody the fans want to see, and he kind of serves a role on the. He's kind of like that mix between like Goto and Yano, right?
Yeah.
He's for the junior division, and he's a popular guy, right? They love him. There's a reason that he has his own stable.
People love ass play.
They do love ass play. And now I have his song stuck in my head, even though I have this on mute. I have Taguchi's song in my head.
I like Kenny just sort of stopping himself from going down there. It's one of those interesting things. Like Kenny's always selling and responding to things in an interesting way, and I just thought that was an interesting take of like, okay, I didn't get hit that hard with the drop kick. I can sort of steady myself,
right,
and go into a different sequence as opposed to taking a flat back bump off the drop kick. Yeah. Kenny not the strongest with the forearms there. That's something he kind of cut out. Not one to do the forearm exchange too much. Great with the chops, though.
He's great with the chops. And again, he does put on, quite a bit of upper body muscle when he goes to the heavyweight. So, I mean, he gets better.
Well, although I also think, again, one of the things that I find
almost a little Taguchi ass.
Just missed it. Going for one winged angel.
Current Taguchi, his ass comes out.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, serious Taguchi, maybe not.
No, there's definitely thumb and ass. Like Kenny's fingers in there. It's awkward.
Well, you can even see Taguchi's actually wearing underwear underneath his tights. And obviously, current Taguchi, that would break kayfabe. Current Taguchi clearly does not wear underwear. Ooh.
Oh, beautiful Rise of the Terminator. It is actually, I will say, one of the things I do like about Kenny and liked about his New Japan work, as we see, by the way, Sho and Yo as the young boys.
Yeah, I was about to call that out.
is that he avoided, you know, some of the strike exchanges that are sometimes a little bit too common, of the throwing forearms, and would do them differently. I do think that can be an overused trope at times, and Kenny, thankfully, was not one to just sort of take the forearms in the face. As he grew, and obviously here he's still adapting to the style, and he's like, if Taguchi wants to throw forearms, I'll take some forearms.
Yeah, I know I have not yet bought or read the Young Bucks biography. I will. I'm sure I've kind of left that one open for an easy Christmas present for someone to get me. But really, the Omega biography is one I charge me any amount right now, I'll pay for it, because I'd love to even know, in Kenny Omega's mind, what's he thinking about his career during this match? Like, is he thinking, you know, maybe I can get to IWGP Junior Heavyweight? That's the top of the mountain. Does he think he'll ever even get to the heights that he gets to? Does he think he's already done it? He's already living the dream. I'm living in Japan. I'm wrestling full time. I've done everything I came to do. I just would love to get into what's going on in Kenny's mind, because we know he's such a thoughtful, smart guy, but he seems like he's a very realistic guy.
Love the run into the turnbuckle there as a reversal. But yeah, no, exactly. I'd be fascinated to see what Kenny was thinking about at this point, because it really was something. He clearly believed in himself. You don't get that far without it. But the rise does end up being so meteoric, so hard to believe. I mean, he said that, you know, when he went into that Wrestle Kingdom match, that he wasn't expecting to get another shot like that. You know, that this is one and only chance. And obviously he got a few more big chances.
Well, I mean, it was his big chance, and he would probably, you know, knocked it out of the park as much as someone can. You know, somebody hits a home run their first at bat in the majors, they're going to get another at bat.
Well, and literally, some would say he hit maybe the longest home run in history.
Right,
So,
right.
One of them.
It's like Bo Jackson. I almost thought Kenny was going to start setting up Sweet Chin music there for a second.
But people are chanting for Kenny.
Doing the Hadouken. Huh?
I love the call from the Japanese commentator of the Hadouken. Also, I don't know if you were Kenny Omega likes video games.
I did not know that. I knew Aubrey Edwards made video games.
Right.
But I did not know Kenny liked them. It's also interesting, like the one-winged angel, obviously in the electric chair position, and we see Taguchi there kind of going to the reverse Hurricane Rana, and it just is like, it is kind of that we think of it as this big heavyweight move, but it was just so organic as a junior move, right? That, you know, he can get all the juniors up in it. And also the juniors have a lot of really obvious kind of counters out of it. And it's really remarkable how it's now become something that we think of as this heavyweight move that Kenny can do to anybody, because he's just an insane person that's a genetic freak and super strong. And the fact that he's obviously worked with opponents on so many great counters that, oh, and this is pre one-winged angel. Yeah, so
the deadlift.
So yeah, I wasn't sure where this was, if he had the one-winged angel in the arsenal. I think he did have it in his arsenal at this point, but maybe he was not using that as his regular finish yet. Again, once we get the book, he'll tell us what he decided to make.
Yeah, I'm excited. Look, I want all their books. I'm excited for the Bucks book. I do have my copy in hand. I haven't gotten the chance to start it yet. I want the Cody book. I want the Omega book. Eventually, I'm probably going to want the Hangman Adam Page book. You know,
yeah,
they're guys I want to know about. They've done a lot for our enjoyment of wrestling.
And I definitely think, like 25 years from now, I want the MJF book, which will still have no breaking character, even 25 years from now, as a AEW Hall of Famer, 5-time world champion, you know, main eventing Double or Nothing 7 years in a row. he still will never break character in his autobiography.
I just hope he remembers me, and him spitting in my mouth at StarCast makes the book. That's all I'm hoping for.
Makes the book. Maybe Kent has some pictures from that can make like the little section in the middle with the pictures.
Yeah. We'll offer it. When we hear he's writing the book, we will offer those up to him. Oh, Kenny's talking.
I was about to say, so I have mine muted. I assume he's speaking Japanese here?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Japanese into a wow.
Yeah. So that's another thing, kids at home, you want to be successful in your career. Learn your boss's language. If your boss is not an English speaker or just whatever language you might speak. I assume you're an English speaker because why are you listening to us in English if you're not? But hey, whatever language your boss speaks, if you don't speak it, learn it. It will help. It will definitely help. And if not your direct boss, the president of your company. Or your booker man.
Look, it's possible, though, you're listening to us in English because there's no good New Japan podcast in Danish. I don't know.
I have heard that from some of my Danish people. Now, Flemish, well covered.
Great,
you do
great podcast.
You do not want to start a new NJPW podcast in Flemish. Very competitive.
One of the best of the New Japan languages in terms of covering.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's not just one of the standard languages on World in the banner. But again, their website's a little behind.
Yeah, it's. Well, that's the thing. He's like, Juice is still kind of doing a few sentences. Kenny's giving a full speech in Japanese.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, Juice has come a long way from where Juice was even at this time last year. Juice does not know how to speak Japanese. Juice maybe is Japanese to the level that I have when I'm getting off the plane in Japan. And I've been taking my app and I've been learning phrases for months and weeks. And then I'm cramming extra hard on the plane itself. By the third day in Japan, I've given up because I realized I don't speak Japanese. But I still have about 80 phrases memorized.
Right.
Whereas Kenny, just full-blown speaks Japanese.
Well, it's also in these promos. You want to be spontaneous, but there's a few phrases to learn. I'm sure you can get by with a few things in the way that Okada absolutely gets by in English with a few phrases.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's all we need. Well, when we New Japan in New York at the Hammerstein, where Evil just learned it's like everything is evil. New York is evil. You all evil. And it's just all you have to know is just a few words and evil, and it works.
And even though we don't like Evil anymore, none of us will ever forget that promo that night.
It was beautiful. Beautiful night. And you know what's also been beautiful, Fax? Our chat here.
Yeah, this has been beautiful. So I guess we'll be back. We'll be rounding the corner on the regular season, so speak quote unquote, of World Tag League and the Super Junior, right?
Yeah, we'll be back Monday night next week instead of Tuesday.
That's right.
I hope that's not totally disturbing to those of you who've just started watching this. But Monday. But generally, we're gonna try to do this on Tuesdays. Although if lots of you say let's do this on Mondays, maybe we'll do that. I don't know.
Put us second screen us with Raw, third screen us with Monday Night Football. Whatever you're gonna do, because I'll tell you what, no matter who gets COVID, we are going to be there on Monday. Exactly. We are not going to reschedule and move to another night, except for the fact that we're doing that next week. But
that's not COVID. That's different.
We're telling you in advance. Nobody has COVID. And if we did have COVID, we'd still be doing it on a Monday night.
Well, and look, if you're thinking about it, you want to watch the Rockefeller Christmas tree lighting, second screen of that. That's a nice option, too.
There you go.
Just saying. All right. We'll see y'all next week. I've been Chris.
I've been Fax.
We've been the Curtain Jerks.
Have a week. Adios.